receive $15 an hour to be on call, which means you need to stay in the town of Dover. And when a call comes in, you would respond to the station, and then you would take the ambulance to the call. So currently that rate is $15 an hour. I'm requesting to go to $20 an hour. Um, when I take all the towns, I've gone through 6 or 7 towns around us, a combination of towns and private ambulances, because there's very few municipalities that mirror what we do. Sherborne would be the closest, and they're $23 an hour. Um, Private ambulances, there's Brewster Ambulance, Coastal Medical, Cataldo Ambulance. These are private paid full-time ambulance. And for EMTs, they start between $22, $21, and $22 an hour up to $28 an hour, depending on their years of experience is what they get paid. So where Carlisle Fire is pretty close to us also, as far as our model, and they're $25 an hour. And then Manchester by the Sea, believe it or not, is pretty close to us as far as they use the on-call system, and they just switched to full-time, so they're $32 an hour. But those are benefited full-time positions. So ours is not a non-benefited position. It would be, the request is for $20 an hour, and they're not full-time. We're working to get them to go in the direction of at least staying at the station. So the $20 an hour is for me to be at the lowest end, but at least competitive with the surrounding towns and with other fire departments that do similar things that we do. And so this is not me hiring new people. This is bringing up the current people we have from $15 an hour to 20. And that's where the difference in the salary on the ambulance side is 114,000 difference from last year. And that's 24/7. We're trying to cover the ambulance 365 days a year. So I hired new people from out of town. They have to stay in the town of Dover when they work for us. They have to be, if they take a shift, they have to be in Dover. Our firehouse is what we're using currently for them. And the response times, unfortunately, we're at like 9 minutes and 50 seconds for a response time, which if you're injured or hurt or having chest pain, that is a long time to wait for someone to get to you. When we have people, the EMTs in the station, when we get the call, the response time goes down to around 3 minutes. So that's a significant increase as far as response times goes, as far as taking care of the department, and the better on the townspeople. It makes it easier for me to retain and hire people at that wage level, because it's tough. I mean, $15 an hour is, you can make that any place I name, I'm going to feel like I'm belittling it. But I started at all these places, Stop and Shop or Shaw's. They're at $20 an hour, $17 an hour for people, and I'm trying to ask EMTs who need to be trained and every 2 years recertify everything. So that's where the biggest bump came, along with the small, the 275 COLA on top of that. So I'm not sure. It's just getting the qualified EMTs has been tough. So I want to put us in a position to be able to compete and retain and hold these people, which I've been lucky at hiring them. So I've gotten a few hired, and we're in the process of training them. Today we put 2 new ones out on the road on their own, so they're not on third ride training anymore. So we're hoping to start to reap the benefits of these employees, because they're not from Dover. So these employees will have to be here while they're working our ambulance. So now we'll have people at the station, which we're slowly, I mean, that's the goal, is to be 24/7 at the station, for the ambulance to be staffed. Any questions on that, or?
So, Chief, I had a couple of questions. One is just what's our agreement with surrounding towns in terms of covering uh, ambulance calls? Do
So
we?
we do. We have two different types of coverage. So one, we call it mutual aid. So if we go to a call and the person needs ALS, which is advanced life support, our town is at BLS, basic life support. We can call the surrounding towns to come in, and then they would help us with that patient. They would provide advanced life support in a couple of different forms. They would transport the patient in their ambulance, or we would transport in our ambulance and they would get on board with us and go to the hospital with them, bringing some of their equipment into our ambulance. Or we send a driver while both of their crew work in the back of the ambulance, and one of our drivers would take the Medfield ambulance to the hospital and drive it. We also have an agreement. Well, we're being asked to have an agreement. If we do have them come in, we would pay them, because you can't bill twice on the same patient. And some of the towns we use, if the patient is in our ambulance, we need to write the report and we bill the patient's medical insurance. The town that comes in to help us, they don't have the ability to bill also. So what they do is they charge us a fee for doing that. So we've been doing that for 10 years. Just paying, like Westwood will pay them at the ALS rate if they come in. If we transport, if they transport in their truck, we don't pay them because they can bill the call. But if we're in our truck and we're transporting and they're in the vehicle in our ambulance with us, then we would pay them a fee, for that, because they can't, only one of us can bill, and it has to be in the town ambulance that is transporting is the billing company.
Right. And what percentage of our calls are ALS and what percentage BLS?
Uh, I would say like what percentage is ALS, what percentage is BLS? Our calls, we're at like a third. Yeah, we're at about a third ALS of the calls. We did last year. We did about 350, and a third of the transports are roughly ALS.
And so with all those, we need a neighboring town to assist.
Yeah, if you call and you have chest pain at our BLS level, we can't treat you the way you should. So it requires ALS intervention because of the extra medications and the ability to take care of you that they have. And a lot of times, police dispatches automatically when certain calls trigger ALS, trauma, chest pain, stroke, things like that would be, our dispatch would automatically page us out and call ALS to whichever town is on the border of the call. So if it was on the Hartford Street side, they would call Westwood. Over off of Dedham Street, they'd call Needham, Turtle Lane, or something. They would call Natick, and then they would come in.
Other questions?
I had two. With the increase in rate, um, would that enable us to change our certification so we could handle ALS, or is that a completely separate issue of,
That's a completely separate issue between ALS and BLS, having paramedics.
okay, so it's a certification aspect and equipment and training and everything
Yes.
else. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
And then out of curiosity, what percentage of the current EMTs are Dover residents versus you're saying the new people you're trying to bring in are generally not Dover residents?
So
Um,
we have about 22 that are Dover residents, or
okay.
20, and the 8 of them that are the 8 that I just hired
Mhm.
are not Dover residents.
Okay. And so for the 20 Dover residents, they can stay at their homes, or they can be, as long as they're in the town of Dover when they're on call, they get paid, but then they have to come to the fire station and then head out, which is why you have the longer time. As you increase that eight number, or the non-Dover ones, they're always at the site. So
They always have to be at the firehouse. Yeah.
they always have to, so your response times are faster. And so do
Eh,
you envision that split changing over time of increasing the
yes,
eight and
I envisioned it. I envisioned it changing in April. Right now in March. I'm keeping the schedule as is, and anyone who's an EMT can take a shift.
yep.
In April, I'm going to give preference to those people who want to take the shift and stay at the station.
Okay.
So it's a slow transition, but well worth it for the residents of Dover. I mean, the response time is noticeable on
Okay.
how quick we can get to a call now when we're at the station, when the EMTs are at the station.
Okay. And
Other,
you said the average is 350 calls a year, so basically one a day?
Roughly, yep.
Okay.
For just on the ambulance side.
Just on the ambulance. Okay.
Yeah.
I assume there's a pay differential if for ALS certified individuals and BLS certified individuals.
Yes, ALS makes a lot more money an hour.
Yep. And what was I going to ask? Oh, the uh, just in terms of do we feel that the number of uh, EMTs you have available from Dover is kind of maxed out at this point? Or are younger people doing this? Or
These are 23 to fresh college graduates.
yep.
We have some Dover girls and guys who are in college right now
Uh-huh.
but they're seasonal for us. The amount of time that they can give us, is vacation times, when school's out, and that's even limited because of they have a lot of activities, or they're going on vacation. The summers are tough, um, so it limits it. However, I did hire 4 town residents that are between 30 and 50 that have decided to put themselves into EMT school, and then come back and apply for our job to work on the ambulance.
Wow, great.
Yeah, that was a unexpected bonus. We did a hiring night at the firehouse. We bought some pizza. We had people come in to explain to them what we do here, residents, and we picked up about 6 people. 2 who are just going to do fireside, and the other 4 who have decided they're going to go get their EMT.
Great. Any
And
other questions for the chief?
I had one other question. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm fielding
Yeah.
questions. If we bill insurance carriers, if somebody has an emergency and the ambulance goes, you said bill, where is the revenue line item in the budget? I mean, how much money does the town historically get from charging for
He wants to know where the budget line item is for money we get from billing the ambulance. All our billing goes to the town hall, and the town treasurer would have that information. Goes into the general fund.
Okay.
Yeah,
What
so
do
I
you
can
need?
answer it for you, Gavin.
Oh, great.
This is municipal accounting, as we explained before. Um, you don't net revenues against expenses. So all the cash that comes in goes into the general fund, which is free cash.
Okay.
So the proceeds that they get from ambulance calls goes into free cash. So when the fire department presents their budget, it's not net of any reimbursements that they have. Rather, the town picks up the revenue on the free cash side.
I'm just trying to understand magnitude of if we do have more on call, everything else like that, is there any potential offset from the charging of what we charge that it's not as big of a net hit? Because I'm assuming actually, this would be the question of how do we charge or bill? Is it a function of our costs, such that if we increase our cost from $15 to $20 an hour, we'll actually be able to recoup a meaningful amount of that effectively? Or
Uh,
is it, do, do
we
you,
we follow Medicare, Medicaid billing
Right.
has a strict
okay,
of what we can bill per call. We're
okay,
on the low end of it also is from the surrounding towns. What we bill is lower than most other towns between mileage and what an ALS, I mean a BLS emergency call, a regular BLS call. We're on the lower end,
And
and
over
we're
time,
bundled.
we've actually increased that significantly, but we've done that gradually.
Right, and we're still on the low end.
Right.
Yeah, and it's a gradual. I mean, I get it. The other difference, other towns, um, the money from that ambulance would go into an ambulance fund controlled by the fire department. I would say, so it would go right back into. So it's that $100,000 that was created, roughly it's 100,000 in ambulance fees, goes into a general fund. In other towns, it goes into an ambulance fund, and the fire department would use it towards training, towards ambulance equipment, towards uh, license upkeeps, things like that.
So I mean, that is certainly something we can discuss in the next budget, because at the end of the day, it still gets netted out against the town expenses. It just
Yep,
would be more transparent. So certainly we could, talk about potentially, I believe we need a warrant article to do that.
right.
So something we should talk about and think about whether it makes sense for next year's town meeting.
Hey, Robin, or Chief Smith, did I hear that Medicare determines how much you can charge for the ambulance run, or at least what you get reimbursed, I assume?
Medicare determines
Yeah.
our bill and fee rate. They determine what we charge, correct? Still, we don't pick the rate.
I think with most, as with most healthcare, what you
Hmm?
get paid is not necessarily what you charge.
Right.
Yeah,
But
but
I
they
get
pick it.
what I'm trying to get to is
No.
how do they end up allowing, I'll say, Westwood or Medfield or any of the surrounding towns to get reimbursed more for the ambulance runs that they do? What
Be-
would be the
So
justification?
there's a window that Medicare gives you. This is the highest end you can bill at, and there's a bottom of it. The other towns choose to bill at the highest rate Medicare allows for the call, and we're below it. We're gradually moving up.
Why do you have to gradually move it up if others are charging
Because it
whatever?
impacts our citizens, not all of them. I mean, some of them don't qualify. So we were trying to be fair and just gradually up the rates we were charging.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't recall all the facts here, so I can get some more information and send it to you.
I mean, I was with you, Martin, as far as why aren't we charging higher? And luckily, I have Rich, who explained to me this is a gradual process. These are people that I'm sworn to protect. So
Right.
I felt. I mean, I want to bill at the highest rate, but if we can gradually do it, I mean, he
So,
kind of opened my eyes to that.
so Robin, if for Medicare we charge a certain amount, would we have the ability on a case-by-case basis to modify in the event of a citizen not
No,
being
the
able to
Board of Selectmen set the rate annually.
Yeah, you can't selectively choose what to.
No.
It's across the board.
Right.
Yeah,
But Medicare, if you have Medicare, I assume Medicare will pay that highest rate, right? So this is
correct.
just for people that don't have Medicare.
Right, but
Right.
the town sets the rate, let's say annually, and it can't be adjusted per case, I guess is the
Right.
best way to say it. It's that rate for the fiscal year.
Right. And I mean, you're not talking millions of dollars here. It's, I'll figure out based upon the number of calls what the differential is in revenue. But, it's not millions or hundreds of
Yeah.
thousands.
Yeah, but getting to, I think the root of Gavin's question is if we're going up on the costs, if you will, we should be able to offset that in some fashion with the increased billing amount to Medicare and on the revenue side.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying, and that's what we're doing. We're doing it gradually because we have to be sensitive to the citizens of Dover. But we'll go back and look at the history.
Other questions for Chief about his budget? Because if we're done with that, I'd like to have him talk a little bit about the KPI. And
If you bring Jim Dolly on, he may have some history too.
History on Medicare, Medicaid billing, or
On why it was set so low. It doesn't matter. I'll get the information and send
okay,
it to you. But
because Rich is sitting right here and he'll know why the
yeah,
rates were
Rich,
set so
that's who
low
I
to
was
begin
gonna
with.
go ask. All right, we'll pull something together. Rich, we won't
All
put
right.
you on the spot.
I don't know if I'm on the meeting, but I have to leave if you can hear me. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
we can hear you, Jim. And Jim, I was just wondering if I was making you take a stroll down memory lane. I don't know if you remember, but I'll spend some
Rich
time with
remembers.
Rich and figure out. Okay,
Yeah,
Yeah.
he remembers. I'll have him email you or call you tomorrow or
that
at your
sounds great.
leisure.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Thank you,
Oh, thanks, Jim.
all members.
So the KPIs, I mean, we met with Martin, and he was nice enough to explain this to us, and he sent us a sheet which I sent back to. We filled it out. It's percentages. Everything here is a percentage on this, on like the response and operations effectiveness, incident outcomes. It's hard to put percentages on particularly what we do on everything. I mean, I can read the whole sheet if you want, or for us, the big KPIs for us would be our community outreach. I'm thinking more like that. Like we do open houses. We saw 1,000 residents come through. We do Santa and we dressed a firefighter up in a Santa outfit, and we drove around and timed it with the tree lighting, and then gave out candy to the residents. We do student awareness and fire education in the schools where we go in, we do stop, drop, and roll. We do like some of the schools will do, the Chickering schools doing a raffle. We just donated a ride to school for the children and pull an alarm day. So we work with the COA where we're giving some talks and trying to meet the seniors. We do a talk with the department heads day. I go down and we'll do coffee with the seniors. For us, those KPIs are really big for us on trying to get out there, get our awareness, get the people to know us, get the kids to know us in the town. Our percentage rates, like on some of these, it's looking for our response times, which I said are right now at 9 minutes. I mean, when we have people in the station, it's down to 3. So that's why we're trying to work in that direction. And then it's asking, what percentage of fire calls, what percentage are EMS calls. We're close to 50-50 on that. We're a little higher on fire calls last year. We've not have the bulk of our fires have been wildland fires or brush fires. We have a couple of structure fires. Last year we had a couple of garage fires. We just recently we lost a chicken coop. But not all of it, things like that. We have a lot of horse accidents, believe it or not. Motor vehicle accidents are a good percentage of our issues also. Yeah, we go to a lot of residential home alarm activations too, like cooking, smoke detector goes off in the kitchen, food on the stove type of calls where we ventilate. There's another one in here, governance. We have 100% policy compliance. We're online with Lexipol. We put out our manual to all the employees. They read through it. So we're trying to stay compliant. We're training the ambulance and the fire. Once a month, we're all together for training. Right now, they're in the background doing it in the next room, the fire training, and then the ambulance training. One Monday a month is ambulance training. One Monday a month is fire training. So we're constantly trying to keep ourselves ready in case. We've got some builders donate houses to us because they bought the property and they're demolishing the houses. And so they donate it to us. We go out there and we train on them. We'll cut holes in them. We have a smoke machine. We'll fill them with smoke. We'll advance hose lines so we can train and be ready for it. Any risk that comes along. Also, I'm the emergency management director too, so there's no budget for that right now, so we're working on that. So a lot of stuff I do there kind of spills over into the fire department, and just putting an asset list together as far as what our equipment is, get things ready for a replacement schedule so there's no surprises coming up. Next year when I ask for something, you're like, wow, why did that come up? I have an asset list and we're trying to stay true to that on the budget here. We've listed a few things on the capital side also, what is coming up. So we're not surprised down the line, but training on the fire side and on the EMS side is, that's a cost item for us. And just paying for the license, the ambulance license and the drug license that we carry that I have to put in for annually is, it's just time and money also.
Any questions or comments for the chief about the KPI?
I'm curious, there are a lot of metrics at the end of the day. Are you tracking all of these currently? Like the data already exists, or is to do many of these, it's a lot of heavy lifting to just trying to understand the incremental workload associated.
No, we
There's so
track
many.
it.
You
have
track.
the computer system. When I say Rich tracks a lot of it. With the computer system that we have that we use for it's called Neris, and
Okay.
our ESO where we write in, we'll put in our fire report that we can go back and track how many calls we did, what the call was for, how many people were on it. Rich has a program through payroll where he can see how many average firefighters do we get on a fire call, the ambulance call we get to all the time. So on that, we can track how long it took us to get there. Did we transport? Did we not transport? Did we get a refusal? Did ALS come? So we can track a large amount of, we have a large amount of information that we keep track of.
Okay. And so is there one or two or three things that in particular you really focus on, or you really look at all of these metrics or a lot of these metrics on a regular basis?
I would be lying if I said on a regular basis we look at them all. There are several that we keep an eye on. For me, especially, I keep an eye on response times. I came from a full-time department, so I'm still getting used to waiting for someone to come in from home, get in the ambulance, and then go to the call. There's a path I've worn out in the concrete, walking back and forth, waiting. A lot of the times, I'm a paramedic. I've been a medic for 30 years. I jump on the ambulance, or I'll take my car one and I'll go to the call. so we can get care there and start it immediately. Then the ambulance will follow up. Um, so we'll keep track of our response times. We keep track of our schedule times to make sure that the ambulance schedule is full. Daily, I keep track of that. Um, and then the other things are we just keep a track on the mileage on the vehicles, the use, make sure the equipment is solid um, to keep us safe so we can do our job. And then fire prevention. We have a fire prevention section that goes out and hopefully preemptively stops fires by educating and checking on permits and following builders up to make sure that they're following the fire codes.
So it sounds like you track an enormous amount of stuff, and that which is great. I would say for KPI, the one thing I might kind of suggest is that you maybe choose 2 or 3 things that you feel like you want to improve. So ambulance response times is one that you're taking action on.
Yeah, filling the ambulance schedule by hiring and in getting those times lower.
Yeah.
So
And
we're at your door faster.
that's a core mission that the ambulance corps has. It feels like you're taking action. It'd be a great thing to track over the next year to see how that improves and use that as an indicator of kind of how the department's functioning. And I think your community engagement program is fabulous. It's taking my grandkids to some of the events. It's a terrific thing. Just figuring out a way to kind of measure how you perform, either in terms of the number of individuals who visit the firehouse or whatever, and then tracking that and thinking about what you can do to improve the numbers is a great other metric to follow. Those would be plenty from our standpoint in terms of what you look at over the next year. But
Yep.
Sounds like you're really doing most of what the KPI project would really want you to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, Woody, I would just echo a bit. And I think the chief and I had this conversation. It's really a matter, and the chief's only been here since September and is the first full-time chief. So as he said, he's getting used to how the whole thing works. But, as Woody said, you as the chief will decide what are the priorities in the upcoming year. And, one way to see how well you're doing against it is figure out how do I measure that, right? When you
Right.
talk about all these things, the community engagement and what's going on with the ambulance service and all these other things, those sheets that I gave you, that's sort of the whole landscape of things. There's no expectation you're going to be able to touch on all of that. You'll
Right.
decide what are the priorities and try to come up with some measures in terms of how are you doing? How are you progressing towards the achievement of those priorities? And I suspect you meet with the town executive director and probably the board of selectmen who will have input in terms of, do they agree with those priorities as well? And that I think is a really effective way of demonstrating, the thought that's gone into choosing those and setting the priorities and measuring the effectiveness over time.
Yeah, the sheet you sent us was an eye opener. It was helpful. It really put us on a good path to help us measure things.
Yeah, that was just something off of Google AI. That sort of was the whole landscape of things that you might consider. But I don't think that anybody has the expectation you're going to do everything on those sheets. And it's
Right,
really
right.
you that are going to drive what those priorities are. So nice presentation.
Any other questions for the chief? If not, thank you very much. Really appreciate you spending the time with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thanks for all your help.
Great. All right, Chief Vincey's here, so I'm gonna go ahead and start on the police and safety. So Uh, Chief, do you we have the material you sent, so I think people have kind of looked through the
Yeah.
what you gave us, but um, we're happy to have you share a PowerPoint presentation, or we can just go through follow along with what you sent.
Okay.
We each have that.
All right. I'll pull it up here. Just a minute. Okay, so can you all see that?
Yep.
Okay, I just got to figure out how to get it into the slideshow. Just 1 second.
Upper right.
Okay. So does everybody have that? Everybody can see it?
Yes.
All right, great. Well, first of all, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here tonight with everybody and give you an opportunity to go over our budget for fiscal 27. And so I followed exactly what you had sent, Woody. So I just, made some edits and made it particular to the PD. So this is just the overview of our department, right? We're 18 full-time sworn police officers. We have no civilian staff at the moment. Everybody is a police officer that works in that building. We have no communications officers, no dispatchers. So our org chart is pretty simple. So it's me, our admin sergeant. We have 3 patrol sergeants, and under the admin sergeant, the detective and school resource officer reports to them. And the 3 patrol supervisors have the rest of the uniformed officers. So that makes up 11. So total of 18. We serve the community through community policing and building partnerships and trying to solve, problem solve and reduce crime, reduce the fear of crime, and just make it a better overall quality of life in the town. So let me, okay. Okay, so talking about some KPIs, we'll just dive right into this here. So in calendar year 25, we performed almost 1,600 motor vehicle stops. And motor vehicle complaints is the chief complaint of most residents in town, whether it's speeding vehicles, cars not abiding by the signage, or something along those lines. So that makes up, I took some other calls out of it. So building checks, which our officers are expected to do on all 3 shifts, I didn't really include them on this. So based on all the calls, with the exception of building checks, motor vehicle contacts made up 22% of our calls. So to me, that clearly displays to the town that we take their concerns seriously. And if motor vehicle complaints are the chief complaint, then we're going to do what we can to try to, serve the community by educating people about motor vehicle laws. The other top 4 were medical alarms and then 911 calls and suspicious activity. So that's just a little bit about call types. So we'll get more into this on the next slide, but I just wanted to touch on what I think was our biggest performance, I guess, asset for the department in fiscal 26 was grants. So grants are something that I worked on previous to coming here, and we were able to identify and receive a number of grants this year. So some of these grants are repeat grants, like our E911, and that's basically we get money to help support the staffing of the desk. The EMD grant, that's been a recurring grant. That's our emergency medical dispatch. So when someone calls with a medical issue, we transfer them to a private vendor who then provides step-by-step instructions on how to treat the patient until the fire department arrives. Couple things that weren't done prior to me getting here as far as I know, I think they may have been done at one time and then they kind of fizzled out, was the Municipal Road Safety Grant. So that pays for traffic related equipment such as handheld radars, speed signs. We have a new speed sign now. It's an 18-inch rectangle that you might have seen around town that records data, that records speeds. So we've gotten that. And in addition to equipment, that supplements extra overtime shifts for traffic enforcement. So throughout the year, there's 5 different traffic enforcement campaigns where we have extra officers on the road to, there's click it or ticket, there's impaired driving, there's texting while driving. Those are just a few of them. So for that, we almost got 20,000 this year. And that's based on your community size. There is a ceiling to that. And we get right to that. The 2 years I've been here, we've gotten that ceiling. A couple other ones on here, the burn grant. So we got that this year. That was almost 30,000. When I came, we had 5 tasers for our officers across 18 people to share. So that meant each officer, when they started their shift, was either given a taser from the off-going shift or had to grab one from the armory. So they had it for their shift. Now, every officer, with the exception of myself, has their own issued taser. So that was a huge benefit to the department, and that was money we received from the Commonwealth and the federal government to cover that 30,000 cost. The other big one, which is pending, I sent an email last week to the Commonwealth, and they're running a bit behind, is the body-worn camera grant. So this is something that I'd like to bring to town. I think it's important for transparency, and I think it's expected in 2026. So this was the last year this grant is being run. So after this, that's it. Towns are going to be on their own to purchase the cameras, the servers, and everything else that comes with it. So I figured, I talked to the town. The town was agreeable to bargaining it with the Patrol Association. So we just had to submit a letter to that fact to the Commonwealth. And so that's $102,000 pending. So right as it stands to date, we've received 124,000 and change this year in grants, with another 102,000 pending. So almost, if we get that body worn camera, we'll be at 225,000, give or take. Some more KPIs. Our average department response time is 3 minutes, which is very good in policing. And it's very good considering we normally have 2 cars on the road. Dover is not the most populated of towns, but it is large in area. It's 15 square miles. So for us to get to most calls under 4 minutes, I think, that definitely is above average as it relates to policing in general. So, and then I broke it down even further between medicals, disturbances, 911 calls. So that's where we stand with that. Some of the other stuff, community engagement, just like Chief Smith said, that's huge for us. We partake with the fire department with the open house every fall. And, we used to do a breakfast with the seniors at the COA, but this year the union decided to go in a different route. So we did bingo. I think that was about a month ago. That was well received. We had a good time. We had about 7 or 8 officers, including myself, at the COA, and we had a lot of laughs, and we had pizza with probably about 40 seniors. So it was a really good time. I participated in the luncheon that the COA puts on as one of the guest carvers. I've done numerous Chiefs talks with the COA. I've done men's coffee group. And then also we have an elder affairs officer. So Sergeant Woolard is our elder affairs officer. He is our liaison to the COA. So I think it's important that we have that relationship because we work hand in hand with them quite frequently. Touch a truck events with the library. We did one at Grossman Camp. We have a great relationship with the staff at Grossman Camp. We spend a lot of time up there between June and September. We try to have a car there as often as possible passing through. We participate in Dover Day, social media, cruiser rides to school. I actually just got an email from a mother on the PTO about the Chickering ride, so we'll participate in that again this year. Another thing I think is very important is partnership with other agencies. I have almost daily interaction with the schools and school administration. Beth and I talk regularly. Our school resource officer, Katie Kolodachuk, is over there every day she works when school is open. So we have a great relationship with the regional schools as well as the Chickering school. Some other things that were on the list that you sent, Marty, were complaints against officers. We had one in 2024 in which the officer was exonerated, which means that the officer did in fact do what the complaint was, and it was just, and it was within his duties to do it. That was more of an education with the complainant. And then this year we had one complaint that the person never followed up on. And again, that would have been exonerated as well, based on the evidence that we gathered and the people that we spoke to. And a few other things, awards. I try to recognize good work when we can. The last 2 years, we had a AAA Traffic Safety Hero Award. That was Officer Cahill in 24, and that was Sergeant Manise this year. We go to a nice luncheon that the AAA puts on. They get a nice plaque. It's a nice thing where we get to reward the guys and girls that are out there doing the job and doing what's asked of them as it relates to traffic. We've had a life-saving award ×3. That was the fall of 24. There was an incident in our parking lot which led to life-saving actions taken by those 3 officers that are listed there. That, in my opinion, saved that person's life. And I think if you asked the fire department side, they would also agree with that. And then most recently, I just submitted Officer Madden for the excellence in CIT. CIT is crisis intervention training. That is basically how to help people in crises related to mental health. That's something that I'm passionate about. That's something we now are 100% trained in. When I came here, I think we had about 10% of our officers trained in crisis intervention. Right now, 100% of our staff has received the 40-hour training to have that certification in crisis intervention training. So again, just very important. It helps us interact with the community better. And that's a lot of what we deal with ends up having some way or form. It's involved with a mental health component. And, I think, so sometimes going back to the stats for police, it's not necessarily that you're doing a good job. It's just data. But I do want to reiterate my point about we are responsive to the community when they have a complaint, and we do put our resources towards alleviating that complaint. So before I get into the expenditures, I'll just touch on the personnel budget. The way it stands is because the DPA is undergoing negotiations. They actually start tomorrow for a new contract. That fiscal year 26 numbers is what I submitted to Chris Costello and Mike Blanchard. So those would be amended after a contract is ratified, I believe, through a supplemental budget approved by the selectmen. So there are no changes as it stands right now to the fiscal year 27 personnel budget, but I'll get into that a little bit further when I get into the requests. So the slide we're looking at now is our 210 account. This is our police account. So you can see in highlighted in the computer basic system, the reason fiscal 27 requested is 59,000 is because that was the threshold of 2.5% to 3%. But I am actually requesting, it's actually 73,000. So an increase in 17,000 in that line item. And the reason is because we are trying to go to a cloud-based server IT. Right now, we hire a third-party vendor to do all our IT work. Prior to my arrival at Dover, we had a breach. I think someone got a little overzealous clicking on links and emails, and we were held, or our system was held ransom for a bit. So we Chief McGowan, my predecessor, had to handle that, and that led to the hiring of World Band. So again, World Band is a Woburn-based company that specializes in sensitive IT. Specifically, a large portion of their business is law enforcement. So right now we're on a physical server-based system. The cloud-based system is an additional expense, but it would allow us remote access. We could get on it from anywhere. And then we also would not be beholden to replacing those servers when the time comes. And they're about 7,500 to 10,000 a piece for a server. That's part of that big increase. Another part is, and just a note too, the town doesn't have an IT department. They also outsource their to retrofit. So I don't know if that's something the town, I think at some point down the road they may look into, but right now we're kind of forced to go with a third-party vendor. So the other part of that increase in that line item is, we got a new system called Blue Voice, which is essentially Siri for police. So it's an app-based system, and it could be accessed from any computer, and everything is on that database, and it's searchable by voice, by text. All our policies, all the laws, and everything else are on there. So it's literally at the officer's fingertips, and we've already used it to great success. So I'd like to keep that going as well. We're kind of on a trial run with it now, so it's great. Most of the other departments in the area are using it. And it also eliminates the need to purchase annual law books, because the law is constantly evolving, and case law is coming out every day. So it's important that we stay up to date. So what that would do is it would offset, if you see down below in the purplish color, that's a decrease under books and periodicals by about $350. So we would no longer have to buy law books. It would all be housed on Blue Voice. And another part of that 17,000 that I didn't write on here is field training software. So recently Sergeant Wilcox retired, and I'm thinking, I don't know for certain, but I think we're going to be having another couple of retirements probably in the next 6 to 12 months. So a field training program that's all online, and easily accessible, no more paper. That would be another chunk of that money would be used for. So that's the 210. This next one is protective agencies, which is our building. Very minor increase here in telephone. Since we've switched to the voice over internet protocol, the New Horizon plan that the town went to, it has gotten a little bit expensive. So you see a $400 difference under the telephone, and then a $200 difference for the water charges. So again, the Aquarian seems to be going up. So I kept that within the 3% threshold on both of those. So there's a total of $600 increase in that 299 budget. For animal control, again, same type of thing, just a modest increase in professional services from 4,200 to 4,400. That's just to pay for the rising cost of courses to keep our ACO certified. She has to do so much continuing ed every year to maintain her animal control certification. So that's a $200 change in that animal control budget. So those are my expenditure accounts. Anybody have any questions on those before I jump to the next one?
No questions.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Okay, so before I get into the requests, this would be what my thought would be for a new organizational chart. So one of my requests that you'll see in the next slide is a executive assistant. So it would be an executive assistant who reports to me, a lieutenant, and I'll talk more about that, and then an additional sergeant. So 4 sergeants, and then the patrol officers, school resource officer, and detective. So that's what I'm proposing. I think this is good for a number of reasons. The lieutenant position that's just more of a title change. There's really no fiscal influence to that. I think but it's important operationally in the department to have a clear delineated number 2 in charge. Right now with 4 sergeants, we really don't have that. And another thing to note is that the sergeants and the patrol officers are in the same union. So oftentimes that leads to a lack of an appetite to hold people accountable. So I think with a lieutenant who's outside of that union and could be a clear delineated number 2 would be tremendous help. And that is the standard. Other than us, I don't think there's no towns locally that don't have a clear number 2. Most of the times it's a deputy chief. But I think the only town that doesn't have a deputy chief other than us is Westwood, and they have 3 lieutenants. So they have 3 lieutenants, one of whom is an executive officer that is the acting second in command. So I just think it's important to do that. And I'll talk more about the sergeants and the increase from it. Well, it would remain 4. So right now we have 4 supervisors. We have an admin sergeant and 3 sergeants. This proposal would be 4 sergeants and a lieutenant. Now, the important thing to note here is we're not adding any numbers for sworn officers. It's just a promotion. So we still would stay at 18 sworn, but with a civilian as an executive assistant. Okay, so this is the new position request. And I'm asking for a full-time position to have an executive assistant at the police department. So the way it stands now is our admin sergeant, formerly Sergeant Wilcox, would perform all the clerical work. They would do payroll, they would do detail billing, payables, turnovers, personnel updates, the tremendous amount of clerical work. And that admin sergeant would do that while juggling patrol responsibilities. So oftentimes Todd would be in the middle of a payroll and an alarm call would come in and he'd have to run out the door and go handle the call and then come back and try to pick up where he left off. And I just don't think it's ideal to have a sworn officer doing those types of things. I think an admin sergeant, or if my hope again, make it a title change to a lieutenant, should be focused on higher level police operations, not doing payroll and the like. They should do scheduling, training, more grant writing, accreditation, which is something I would like to pursue as the chief of Dover PD. But I think we're going to need help if we want to pursue that, because that's a tremendous amount of work. And most agencies have 1 full-time, if not 2, that do accreditation only. So the executive assistant would free that lieutenant or admin sergeant up to perform some of these tasks and also help me with the day-to-day operation of the police department. It's just important to note that most towns have some sort of civilian or executive assistant or admin assistant. I know Westwood, where I came from, they have 2. They have an executive assistant and a records clerk. So they would help each other out. All the other departments that I spoke to have an admin or an executive assistant as well. And I think this is the proper time to do it as well, because we are pursuing regionalization of our dispatch, which means that our dispatch will be taken over by Holbrook Regional Emergency Communication Center, which means that we will not have an officer at the desk if that happens. And right now it's looking like that is probably going to happen late fall or early winter of 27. So my thought is, in addition to all that clerical work, the executive assistant could sit at the front desk in 8 to 4, Monday through Friday, and be a person to greet people as they come in, ask questions. We average probably a half a dozen to 8 walk-ins a day, just during the day shift. So I think that would help soften the blow of someone expecting a person to be at the desk and not having someone there. Additionally, there is a tremendous amount of other stuff that our sworn officers do. Public record request is constant. We average probably a couple dozen a week, and that's time consuming. You have to know how to do it. So my thought is that we could train that person up to do that. Also do help with court discovery. That means getting all our paperwork in order. If someone's requesting a 911 call for a case, they could download that, and help with detail requests and firearms licensing process. So the firearms licensing process is another very busy clerical task that right now Officer Sullivan does. And he probably spends, just on that alone, if I had to guess, probably 8 to 12 hours a week that he's in the station processing that paperwork. And we want to do a good job in getting back to people. We don't want to keep people waiting. So he really does a good job with that. But my thought is that executive assistant could take that over as well. So, my worry is that if we don't do the executive assistant, like I said, there's going to be no one at the desk. That admin sergeant or lieutenant will be taken away from doing some of their higher level tasks, such as grant writing. And because I think we're doing pretty well with grants, I'd like to keep that going if we find suitable grants out there. I think the accreditation is super important too. That's the gold standard in Massachusetts policing. It's not easy to do. It's a tremendous amount of work up front. And then once you're accredited, you have to be reaccredited every 3 years. And the ongoing compliance to stay up to speed with it is a tremendous amount of work. I helped with it when I was at Westwood. I had someone underneath me that did it exclusively, but I helped him as he needed. And I know from experience that if that's something the department and the town want to pursue, we're going to have someone that has the ability to dedicate a tremendous amount of time to it.
Could you explain a little more about what accreditation would require?
Sure. So it requires an overhaul of our policies. Right now, our policies are in pretty good shape, but there's a bunch of standards. I think there's a total of, I want to say like 300 standards, or maybe 350, something like that. 200 are mandatory that you have to meet across your policies. And then I think like 135 are optional. So yeah, it goes from everything to the way we transport our detainees to how we do cell checks to our generator running, making sure there's monthly tests on the generator. It runs the gamut top to bottom of the police department. It also includes the physical plant of the police department. So what happens is once you think you're ready, you call up MPAC, which is Mass Police Accreditation Council or Committee, excuse me, and they come and they go over with a fine-tooth comb all your paperwork to make sure that if you're supposed to have my firearms qualification from 2026, you can produce that on site. And they spot check you. But it's good. It's good for the town. It's a feather in the cap for the town. It's a feather in the cap for the agency. It's also known to decrease liability costs. I think it makes us maybe a little bit more attractive for some grants, not all, but I don't think it could hurt. And yeah, but it is the gold standard in Massachusetts policing. The only one above MPAC is CALEA, which is national. And around here, I don't know of many nationally certified accredited departments, but just around us, Norwood's accredited, Westwood is, Dedham is, Sherburne is. So a lot of our abutting communities, Needham absolutely is. So most of our abutting communities are already participating in this. And I just think it sends a message that we take the job and the profession very seriously, and will stay on the cutting edge of policing as it develops. So it's an evolving, living, breathing process. But I don't know. That was kind of a long-winded answer, Woody. I'm sorry.
No, that was great. That was great. Thank you.
That accreditation is something in the future, though, right? That you're trying to set as a priority, as I understand it. Is that
Yes,
right?
that's correct. Yeah, that's in all reality, to get to the point where we're calling the assessors to come into the building is probably a 18-month to 24-month process just to get there. Yeah, so that definitely is a future project.
And any estimate on what it would cost to do that? Or
Um, well, I know because I was looking this week. I actually reached out to MPAC and spoke with the director, and there is a cost you have to pay to do it, which seems counterintuitive, but that's how it works. So it's based on agency size. So I think less than 20 officers, I think it's $3,200 a year membership fee. And that gets you access to all of their systems, all the standards, because they keep that under tight wraps unless you pay for it. And
and that
then I'm sorry, go ahead.
and that would be a benefit once you get access to those. You think that would improve the abilities and capabilities of people in the police department, right?
Yes, I do. I absolutely do. Because again, you're going to be on the cutting edge and you're going to be up to date every time something changes in law enforcement or something rolls out, we would have to comply with it to maintain our accreditation. So it's a checks and balances to make sure you're doing the right thing and what the standard is across the state. Um, and then this is the last one. This is just, I don't think, I know I put this in wrong. I put this in as a additional position. This is not an additional position. Like I said, we're staying at 18 sworn. What I'm asking here is for the town to agree to let me make an additional supervisor. So not including me, I'd like to have 5 supervisors in total. One of the biggest challenges we have at Dover PD is lack of supervision on shifts. Where I came from and a lot of other departments, most have supervisor only overtime, meaning that if a supervisor takes the day off, it has to be filled with another supervisor. In Dover, we don't have that simply because we don't have the size. So if a sergeant takes a night off and it's overtime, anybody can take that shift to include a patrol officer. So there are a number of shifts where we don't have supervisors scheduled. Right now, we did the numbers a couple of weeks ago. 2/3 of our shifts have a sergeant scheduled. Now, that doesn't account for when they take a day off and a patrol officer takes that shift. So it's the actual number is probably closer to 50%, 50 to 55. Adding an additional sergeant or promoting an additional sergeant would drive that up to about 90% of shifts. So again, realistically, probably 80 to 85% would have a sergeant actually working. So it's important because with promotion comes additional training. Sergeants have to go to class. It's a 32-hour class that's mandated by the Commonwealth. And there's a reason for that because they're held to a higher standard. So patrol officers don't get that training. You can send them to a similar type training. It's called officer in charge training, and it's an 8-hour course. So it doesn't go nearly as in depth as the 32-hour course. So I think this would greatly benefit the town. I think with with an additional supervisor, I think we would protect ourselves liability wise by having someone that's trained to run a shift. The cost of promoting, I have adding, I'm sorry, that's incorrect. Right now, the way the contract is, as of today, the top step patrol officer is $80,918.11. So the delta between the top step patrol and the first step sergeant of $84,304 is of just under $3,400 for the first year. So it's a small number. However, our sergeants max out at step 2. So fiscal 28 and beyond, that delta would grow to about 18,000 as it stands right now. So,
And Chief, with anticipated retirements, do you have people you think would be suitable to be promoted into these positions, or?
yeah, so we just promoted Jeff Lynch on the 26th of January. So Jeff's been a sergeant a couple of weeks. We had the promotional process, and we had two people take it. The other is Mike O'Brien. So Mike is certainly eligible to be a sergeant. So we have the people necessary to make it happen. It's just tough. I would have liked to have more people, more than two take the test, but it's, a lot of people like where they are. And what I mean by that is the shift they're on. And if you promote, you go to the bottom of the seniority of that rank. So you could go from a day shift patrol officer to a midnight sergeant. And a lot of officers don't want to take that chance because they're comfortable where they are with their family life and everything else. So we only had two take it. So.
Yeah, and just to clarify, did you say that there's only two steps on sergeant? So after 27, 28, then just becomes the COLA increase, or is there anything higher? So because it's a big increase from year one to year two, is year three then another big increase, or is year 3 or 4 it's just the COLA?
It's just the COLA at that point. Yep.
Okay.
They max out at step 2 for sergeant.
Chief, can you take me through why jumps so radically between year 1 and year 2?
That was a collective bargaining thing with the town. Then that would have been fiscal 24 through 26. So that would have been probably worked on in the spring of 23. So I wasn't here. Our patrol officers have 4 steps, so it takes 4 years to get to the top step. I think if I had to guess, and just speaking from past experience, is when you're a supervisor, a lot of agencies don't want to wait 4 years to max out, because you're supervising as a step 1 sergeant as you would be as a step 3 sergeant. I think that's why they may have done it. I can't speak to that. And I don't know if I don't know, Robin, if you're on here, I don't know if you were part of that negotiation, but that's just how it's set up in the contract.
And Chief, there's a stipend right now. I think you mentioned for and the admin sergeant. Is that how would that offset any new position?
So that is it okay if I stop sharing? Because I don't know why I lost everybody, but
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, now I can see everybody. Okay. So yes, right now our admin sergeant, which was Todd Wilcox, which is currently now Ryan Manise, he gets a $2,100 a month stipend to be the admin sergeant. So my thought is that money's already there. With that title change of admin sergeant to lieutenant, we use that stipend that's already allotted to make that position happen. If that makes sense.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions?
And just to go back, it was going back to the IT, that was a 17K jump.
Yes, sir. Yes, we're asking from 56 to 73.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
And I had one last question, which was, you said the executive assistant position might help you pursue more grants. Is there a large grant opportunity just in general that you think the town's missing on that, it could be a meaningful amount, or is it, look, we might be able to do a little bit, but don't expect a big increase in grants if I have the incremental.
Well, I don't know that it would necessarily open us up to any more grants, but I think it would allow more time for that lieutenant or admin sergeant to pursue grants. One thing to note, and I think this is important, is that this year I highlighted the grants, right? And it's a pretty good number, I think, for an agency our size. But just know that potentially that number could decrease next year because we wouldn't be asking for new tasers or new body-worn cameras. So you may see that number cut in half next year, potentially. And also, the E911 training and the EMD grant, those would also, if we regionalized our dispatch, we wouldn't need those anymore, nor would we be privy to them. So just something to note. Ryan Sergeant Manise is really active with grants and he likes to do it. So if there's something out there that we think we can get our hands on, we're gonna try. But it's just important to note that that number is very likely to decrease next fiscal year. So.
And Robin, are grants just like the ambulance billing? They go for free cash, or?
So the way if she's not there, so it's either a reimbursement grant or we submit. That's how it's normally done. So a reimbursement grant means that the town fronts the money, and then that money will flow in from the Commonwealth and offset it. And the other times, the grants are you submit the invoices to them, and they end up paying it. So
and they pay it directly. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for the chief? If not, thank you very much. It was very helpful.
Everybody. I hope that was insightful.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you very much. It really was useful.
Okay. Thank you all. Have a great night.
Same to you.
Take care.
Bethany and Rob are here, so why don't we just go right to the library?
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Great. We all got the material you sent, Bethany. So it's if you feel more comfortable sharing, that's great. If not, we can just follow with what with the documents you sent.
I would like to screen share just.
Great. It should be set up so you can do it.
Yes. And I want to make sure I'm screen sharing just to make sure we're all quite literally on the same page. And I know if there are questions in the moment, what it's referring to. I'm going to get this set up and hop over to the correct window here. Get that going.
Great.
So
while she's setting up, I just wanted to say, as someone who has sat in your chairs before, I greatly appreciate the work that you're doing, and I'm very impressed with this new organization that you have having us all do. So thank you. It's really a really great improvement to the process for the town. So we're glad at the library to be able to organize in the way that will make it easier for you. But it's really long overdue and well done. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it's all yours.
All righty. So you can see I didn't use the template you sent, but I did try my best to make sure it was reflecting the same kinds of information that the shared template went over. If you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to stop and ask for any clarification along the way. So the library in town, I feel like everyone has a really good sense of what a public library is and does, at least in a general sense. Our mission is to build a thriving and vibrant community and inspire personal growth by providing free and easy access to ideas, information, people, and possibilities. The idea being we're free, we're open to the public, and we really want everyone in town to feel like this is their place to visit and to find the entertainment and information and research that they're looking for. That falls really into our responsibilities. We are using our funds to collect and circulate materials in all formats. We provide public space, we provide programming for visitors, and we do have state mandated service requirements that we adhere to. At the top of our org chart are the elected trustees. The trustees hire the library director, that's me. I supervise 4 department heads as their primary supervisor. Those department heads collaboratively supervise 2 professional full-time staff members and 7 part-time paraprofessional staff members. So our total FTE is about 10.5 spread across 14 employees. I think the trustees, it's a really important role to clarify as we're going forward. So my job is to make sure the day-to-day operations are flowing smoothly and that we're really being mindful of the ways the policies and the funding come together to provide services to the communities. So the trustees' role, they hire the director, they set the strategic plan. Our strategic plan is good for about another 1.5 years or so. They advocate for the library, both in terms of funding. So thank you, Rob, for being here tonight. They make sure they're at town meeting and they're talking to other community members. The trustees set policy. They make sure that the guidelines for the library's operations are in line with community interests and needs. The trustees approve our budget requests. So the numbers you're going to see here tonight are exactly what the trustees have discussed and approved, and they oversee the trust funds. The trustees are also there to make sure that we are staying in line with state certification requirements. And within certification, there's the municipal appropriations requirement, meaning there are certain funding levels that the state is looking for to ensure community support for the library. We have a minimum number of hours that we're required to be open. And if we are adhering to those guidelines, it yields state aid grants, which were about $16,000 this year, and reciprocal borrowing privileges, meaning folks in Dover are able to visit any library in the Commonwealth to borrow materials. If we lose certification, meaning our budget decreases too significantly, we're not open enough hours, we lose state aid, and we lose that reciprocal borrowing. Libraries are not required to abandon the reciprocal borrowing benefits, but I don't know of any libraries in this area that would extend borrowing benefits to a decertified community. So that certification is a really, really big step toward making sure that the library system that Dover residents have come to know and really rely on is there for them.
So Bethany, are the two primary requirements to achieve certification, are those the first 2 blocks there? The funding level?
Yes, the MAR and the open hours requirement. Yes. And so looking at our KPIs, I love spreadsheets. I love statistics. This was really fun to put together. This is also all information that we collect every year for the states. We have an annual report that we put together that collates everything that sits still long enough to be counted. So this snapshot, the numbers in black show our FY25 stats. And just to show you how that compares to FY24, that percent change is shown in gray. We're really seeing a lot of growth in the library. Our visitors, so our foot traffic, that was up 3.6% over FY24, and we're seeing even bigger increases this year. Really, it's been a lot of fun. It's been bustling at the library. Cardholders are slightly down. That's also a complicated figure. Our non-expired cardholders are actually up over the previous year. But we're really right in line with a lot of libraries for this region. About half of community residents are cardholders at the library. Print circulation and e-circulation are fascinating figures to watch right now. Our print circulation is decreasing slightly, primarily in adult materials. And all of that is being shifted to digital. So whatever we're losing in print, we are more than making up for in digital circulation through Libby and Hoopla and a few other resources. You can see we had really massive surge in digital circulation in FY25. And again, we're seeing even bigger leaps in e-circulation for FY26 so far. Events are another place where we're really looking at community engagement. In FY25, we hosted 455 events for the public. That includes things like Super Awesome Fun Time, Crafts for Kids, Dungeons and Dragons for teens and tweens, craft and lectures, and a number of other events for adults. This includes things like Dover Days and school outreach. All of that put together, we had a 15% increase in the number of events that staff offered to the community in FY25. That's more than an event per day. It is a really big undertaking, especially for such a small community and with not an especially large staff. Our staff are talented, they're creative, and they love making sure that there are events for the community to attend. And the community really attends these events. You can see that our FY25 attendance was just under 23,000 people, which is just under a 10% increase over FY24. So a lot of attendance. That average attendance per program comes out to about 50 people per event. Very misleading statistic, since we can easily get 120 people at a Super Awesome Fun Time event in the summer, whereas our adult programs were more likely to see about a dozen people. But that average attendance is just a quick and easy way to see how that attendance is going. And I think the other really big question is looking at the KPIs. It is and it isn't useful. Like I said, I love looking at statistics. The trend is really the place where it becomes interesting. But the return on investment is what I think really matters when we're looking at the budget. So in FY25, we spent just under $880,000 in municipal funding and a little over $105,000 in non-municipal funding, including state aid, trust funds, and gifts from the friends. So for a total of about $986,000, we provided over $2.1 million worth of services. This comes from another spreadsheet looking at, for all the books borrowed, what would it have cost our community members to purchase those? What would it have cost our community members to pay to attend these events or workshops or to rent the meeting room? Really looking at the dollar value of the services that we're providing. So we're saving the community quite a lot of money with the funding that we have. Again, I am so impressed by our library staff who are able to take not especially large budgets and put together these amazing events. So as we're looking at that, I just really like keeping an eye on that number to see, are we providing more than we're receiving? And I think the answer to that is a nice, strong yes. Breaking down those 25 expenses, you're going to see this across the board in all of the budgets. The vast majority is salaries. So making sure that we have the staff to keep administering the services. Utilities and supplies are a pretty steady figure. Circulating materials, we spent just under 17% of our total municipal budget on circulating materials in FY25. Our state mandated minimum is 15%. And that is a good number to see there. That's 16%. We get, if we get any closer to 15%, I do start to get very nervous about the certification process. And then network membership, meaning our dues that we pay to the Minuteman Library Network in order to be part of that consortium. And from our non-municipal budget lines, we spend about $55,000 on capital projects, including the study pods. I love those. Programming was about $35,000 of non-municipal spending last year. And then other categories include the hospitality supplies, the coffee, the mints, the pens, the menstrual hygiene products in the bathrooms, all of that falls under non-municipal spending. Most of it is coming from the Friends of the Library's fundraising. Some of that is coming from state aid, and some is coming from the trust funds. And breaking that down, this is where our FY25 non-municipal funding came from. We got about $51,000 from the Friends. Trust interest brought in about $25,000, and we are really keeping our fingers crossed that the updated investment strategies are going to be able to grow that funding more aggressively in the coming years. About $16,000 came from state aid, and we had about $4,000 in grants. And most of that came through Minuteman for telecom and small libraries in networks funding. And then comparing the municipal and non-municipal funding for FY25, it's not a very surprising pie chart, but that extra spending really does help, the extra revenue rather. And then the FY26 comparison with the 27 request. I know you have all of the VADAR reports. You've seen all of the numbers. This is just breaking it down in a slightly different ways for a little more clarity. Because of some staffing changes over the last year, we're really in a much better place than we could be for FY27. You can see the bottom line is about a 0.6% decrease over FY26, and this is without making any cuts. I'm really pleased that we're in a pretty solid place for our FY27 budgets. I've made a few guesses in here. One of the guesses is around our utilities. The library is midway through an HVAC project, and midway is a generous way to put it. We are just starting to interview design firms. The new system is anticipated to be fully electric. I have no idea how much it's going to cost to operate. So for FY27, what I'm requesting is the combined total of the FY25 electric plus fuel oil lines. I'm really hoping we don't need that much. We are still going to be on fuel oil for at least part of FY27, but we didn't know that when we put the budget in. But between those two, we'll have enough funds to get through that year. Water and telephone have been pretty stable. Copier supplies, it's just paper. Data processing is all of our databases. So it's the online scheduling software that we use to make sure staff know where they're supposed to be. It's the online calendar that lets us make sure our programs are being marketed to the community and that they can register for online, and a few other pieces in there making sure that our computers and technology are operating smoothly and safely. Office supplies, books and materials, those are all pretty straightforward. Books and materials is automatically set at that 15% minimum threshold. Travel reimbursement and meetings are both for professional development. And I think the biggest question is always, what is miscellaneous? And miscellaneous encompasses primarily our Minuteman Library Network membership. That is about $28,000 of that miscellaneous line. The other pieces are things like the whole building water filter, making sure that gets changed, making sure our post office box gets paid every year. But miscellaneous is primarily network membership. And again, looking at the bottom line for the municipal request, we're decreased at just under 1%. And the year-to-date actuals for FY26 are there. I think we're in line with what we've budgeted. And breaking that down just a little bit, that FY27 request, again, you can see salaries are, as always, the majority of that request. Utilities and supplies are staying pretty stable over with a comparison to FY25. Circulating materials set at that 15% threshold, and network membership. And that's all I have for for this slideshow. Is there anything you would like to look at again, or I'll open the floor for any questions you have?
Bethany, I just want to, before Marty, I see you have a question. Before, I just want to reiterate, I think you all know this, but all the programming that we do at the library is paid for by donations from the
Yes.
Friends. So no
Yes.
municipal, all that like 500 whatever programs, that is not taxpayer dollars, that is all through gifts. I also wanted to just mention to the warrant committee that we've been working with the Board of Selectmen and the townhouse to make sure that our funds, our trust funds that we have an endowment, we have it's called a Hovey Fund, which are now being invested properly after many years of being kind of neglected, so that we're hoping that those investments will be able to also offset some of the challenges that we know the town is going to face long term budgetarily, and so we're hoping to be able to grow those funds so we can use the interest to supplement some of the other things that we want to do at the library, particularly in the area of capital. And then for those of you who don't know, the library is responsible for kind of like the paint in, um, uh, with the exception of like carpets and things like that, like in general, like furniture and things like that's what the library budget is, and anything else is the buildings department. Kind of the budget comes from that. So I just wanted to make sure for those of you who maybe are new to the warrant committee, how the library kind of is a little different in that we don't we have those are some different differences. And Marty, you had a question I saw.
Yeah, I was just looking for some clarification, Bethany, on
Sure.
circulated materials versus the e-circulation or digital.
Sure. Let me
Where's
pop back over to that.
where's the cost associated with the digital?
That is in books and materials. It's all part of that. Anything that we can loan out to patrons all goes into that 15%.
And
Yeah.
Marty, I think what you're asking is like, why is digital expensive? It's actually more expensive than books, to be
Really?
honest.
Way more expensive.
Yeah, there's legislation pending in the state house to help reduce that cost right now, but it's very expensive. It's actually very expensive to when you I always now question whether I take out a book online or not, because I know it's going to cost the town more money if I take it out and then don't read it, than if I took a book out and didn't read it. So
Don't listen to Rob. Borrow things.
no, of course, borrow, but it's about the licensure. Bethany can explain more, but it's it, it, it we're in a tough place right now with digital with the payment structure around digital loans. It's not just free because it's online. It's more expensive.
Yeah, but I mean, when you look at the actual costs, the
Mm-hmm.
costs are definitely less, and therefore there must be licensing or some type of agreements that are forcing you to have to pay
Yes.
more for a digital
Yes.
experience.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. There have been a number of legislative attempts made nationwide trying to rein in the costs of specifically library digital materials. One attempt or one variety of attempt has already been thrown out in the courts. So the State House is trying a few different tactics to see what could be done. But yes, it's the licensing agreements that are really racking up the costs for that.
And are you mandated as a library in Massachusetts to deal with some exclusive provider of that, or can you open it up to the marketplace?
We can open it up to the marketplace. The complication is that very few digital lenders will work with libraries individually. So Overdrive and Hoopla are the two primary providers at this point. Amazon will not work with libraries. So
That's the one I was going to ask about. They
Nope.
won't work with library.
No, there is one platform that the Boston Public Library is working with that Amazon has given some access to, especially the Audible exclusives. But Amazon really doesn't want to work with libraries. They want consumers to buy directly.
Well, it sounds counterintuitive because as an individual, I know I'll pay less if I access a book through the commercial sources electronically than buying a hard copy, right?
Yes, I think where the digital the digital vendors are coming from is that even if the library is paying more for a license, the community impact is still lower. So if we buy a 12-month license for a digital title that costs us $50 and we circulate it more than 10 times over the course of that 12-month license, which is quite likely, then it's only a $5 fee per use. And that's still less than a consumer would pay to buy it on their own. So the vendors really have all of the power in this. But legislation and libraries are trying very hard to advocate for a different model.
Oh, good luck.
We need it.
Bethany, I had a question. Have you seen any impact on library traffic from the opening of the community center?
Fascinating question. And the answer is no. I wasn't sure exactly what was going to happen with the community centers opening either, how much it might change traffic. And it actually looks like the library and the community center are both finding really robust traffic. So no, when Carroll opened in September, we really did not see a decrease in foot traffic. January is the first year-over-year decrease in foot traffic that we've seen in about a year and a half, and that doesn't appear to be tied to anything going on at Carroll. So I'm really pleased that Dover increased its services and isn't just dividing the same community into different segments.
Yeah, cold weather could certainly affect traffic too.
Oh, yes, it can. Yes.
And then are there technologies, things that you wish you were able to do that you're unable to do because you're limited by funding?
No, at this moment in time, technology is not one of the areas where we're really feeling a pinch. By the way, before I keep going, is there anything in the slideshow people would still like to see, or I can stop sharing so you can see big faces again?
I think
All
we're
right,
good.
I'll stop sharing.
Yep.
All righty, there we go. Right, so no, technology isn't one of the bigger limitations we have right now. We're meeting the public's needs pretty well. We have public computing, our self-checkouts. A lot of our technology that is very library specific is coordinated through Minuteman, and that takes a lot of pressure off the library. What we are feeling a pinch in is physical space. Particularly in the children's room, there isn't much we can do about it for the time being. But our children's room is quite often swamped with people, especially around Super Awesome Fun Time and at about 3:30 in the afternoon when the school kids come in. There is nowhere to put extra chairs. People are sitting along the walls, on the floor. They seem happy to be in the library, but it would be amazing at some point down the road if we had a room that was big enough to hold everyone who wanted to be there. But technology is doing okay.
Okay, great. Other questions? If not, that
You
was good.
sure? I have more time?
I was curious for one, which
Oh,
was that
okay.
ROI calculation. Is that a new
Yeah.
calculation? Is it something that's being done over time? And is that ratio versus expenses being trending in one direction or another?
Ooh. So I've only run that particular set of calculations twice since I've been here, and it's been approximately the same ratio both times. So once was during the strategic planning process as the trustees and I were really looking at what does the library do and what is the value that it brings to the community. And it was still pretty similar, kind of around that 2-to-1 ratio. It's something we can only run very efficiently on about an annual basis because it's bringing in average prices of materials as well, which publishers kind of only put out about once a year. So it's trying to average out how much the average adult hardcover, adult paperback, teen of both, kids of both. So those numbers only come out occasionally as well. But yeah, the trend has been holding pretty steady. Oh no, you're muted.
You said about, sorry, thanks.
Yeah.
You said also about only about half the town has a library card. Is that also the norm of about half
Yes.
the library, half the town uses the library, about half doesn't really use the library? Is that how to interpret that number?
No, the library card statistic is such a funny one. Generally, looking at the network as a whole, that's the data that I have access to on a pretty easy basis. About 45-ish% is a really normal number for a community because what you're generally taking into consideration is a balance between some households where everyone in the house is going to have a library card of their own. And then there are other households where they are active library users, but there's only one card and they're all sharing it. And then there's the additional factor of households that don't have a card at all. And we are able to see where those pockets are, but the distribution of library cards by households in Dover is pretty widespread. So it's an interesting data point, but it's not as direct as it makes it sound.
All right, great. Thank you so much. I love the library. So it was a great presentation.
Thank you so much. And please reach out if you have any other questions.
Okay, thank you.
Take care.
All right. Janet's on, so we'll do the Concom next.
Woody, do you mind if we take like a 2 or 3 minute
IO break?
break?
You want
Yes,
a
bio
2 minute
bio
break?
break. I mean, I'm not having done this before. Do you guys go the full 4 hours with no bio breaks, or?
Well, I don't think we're going to go 4 hours, but I'm happy to do a 2 minute break.
Okay, great.
A stretching break.
Yeah.
And this is Janet. I am expecting our chair, John Sullivan, to be joining us anytime. And
Okay.
our secretary, Amy Moot, is going to run the PowerPoint for us.
Great.
And I will say, unlike some other maybe larger committees and boards, I think that I'll just tell you from a staff point of view, this has been a really constructive exercise. Having the warrant committee give us some real structured requests for the type of information you want from us. And then our two liaisons, Gavin and Dick, have been really helpful as well. They attended a 2-hour meeting this past Monday night. So
Great. Well, thank you. That's good feedback. It's always educational for us as well.
So I see, yep, I see John and Amy here. They're just they're taking a quick break here. So we'll be up soon.
We said 2 minutes, but I'm not optimistic.
You know, it's enough for 11 footballs. So
Yeah.
Well, and Woody, I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
The only warrant, the only standalone warrant article we have is our recurring town contribution to our conservation fund.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, in the past, no one from conservation has attended the open hearing because it's sort of a standard
Yep.
article. Are you doing things differently this year? Would you like a representative to at least address it briefly, or?
It'd be great if someone could come just for the a brief comment, but it's not if it's a challenge to make it, don't worry about it because it is a recurring thing. So
And when is that open meeting?
we've been trying to move all the dates up this year. So this year open hearing is the 9th of March,
It's 1 month away.
1 month away.
Okay.
A week earlier than it has been in the past.
And the presentation we're going to give tonight, would we typically do something or a shortened version of that for the open hearing? Or would you be presenting that?
Well, what we would at open hearing we discuss the articles. So
Mhm.
so it'd be a brief presentation specifically about the article and why it should be supported.
Mm-hmm. But that presentation from your dais, or is that from in the past we've done it both ways. Sometimes we have our representative just go over briefly, and other times it's just been handled via the warrant committee.
Well, we'll read the article, and if you don't feel that you need to make a comment, that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we'll usually have somebody there just in case other people have questions.
Have questions.
And then,
That's
yeah.
great. Okay, Janet, you're on.
Okay, and I'm going to defer to John Sullivan. John's going to make the presentation
Okay.
on behalf of the commission.
Okay.
All right. John, you can, if you want to show slides, we have the presentation you sent, so everybody's looked at that. But if you want to share, that's fine too.
Yeah, how do you want to go ahead and pull that up, Amy, and then we'll just go through, or I can pull it up. Good. Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for I'll second Janet's comments. It was very helpful having a rubric this year to flesh things out, and Gavin and Dick were very helpful on that. Also, call out to Cam Hudson from the Selectmen, who's been helpful as a liaison from them as well. So this is the first year that we've had noticeable liaisons with town boards, and it's been very helpful. One of the things that it's brought to our attention is that many board members throughout town, and we assume that many residents as well, are not clear on what we do. Some may have heard of our marathon meetings, but may not be fully up to speed on the things that we do. And so I'll give you a brief overview of that, and then we can get into our financials. Amy, can you roll down a slide, please? So in the 2011 master plan survey that was sent out, maintaining the rural character of the town actually edged out the school system for one of the reasons people move here. And it was, and much of that has to do with lands that conservation oversees, as well as our state required mandates in terms of managing development, managing water water resources, stormwater resources, maintaining that open space via a number of regulations that are covered both under the state and also town bylaws. Given that much of the town, even Eversource, requires wells for our water supply, and I think it's somewhere around 65% of homes get their water from private wells. How we handle development, septic systems, work that's done within 100 feet or of of wetlands, of which we have considerable amounts of. All of these go to replenish the aquifer. And so we're sort of the first line of defense, along with Board of Health, in maintaining the water purity there. Additionally, is mandated by the state and research for the town, the resilience of dealing with flooding, some of the storm changes that we've seen over the last 30 years in terms of climate resilience, maintaining protections during development so that we don't have homeowners or developers silting up wetlands and affecting water supply. These are all things that we do under our general mandate. On top of that, Amy, if you move to the next slide, please. We, as conservation ourselves, we manage 611 acres of open space land that's owned by the town. Much of this is, I believe, Amy, is this full amount what conservation has in fee? Okay, so that's actual land that we own, and then we included in that is some oversight. Families that have put conservation restrictions on their properties and then give that restriction to the town to enforce that in perpetuity, making sure that open space is maintained. Some of the things that you've seen over the years have been we've opened up land at the bottom of Strawberry Hill on Dedham Street, giving you a clear view as you come in from Needham to the Charles River. We've opened up the land and the vistas from Main Street and Haven Street for the fields there. We're worked with the town for 46 Springdale in terms of the purchase of the Snyder property there, and we maintained somewhere around 23 acres there, and that gives us access to on this right-hand pie chart, you'll see the DLCT holds around 20% of the town acreage, and much of that is behind 46 Springdale. So this gives ability for people to come off of Springdale, walk through Springdale Farm there, and then join up with DLCT trails, and eventually that will give people access from there and also Wild Woods to the rail trail. And then, of course, trustees and Hale hold around 50% in total of the protected property we have in town. So 40% of the town is protected open space, which is significant compared to most of the towns surrounding us. And let's see, Amy, why don't we move to the next? Thanks. So outlined in our mission statement, as many of you may have already read, covers many of the things I just mentioned. And under responsibilities, what takes up a good portion of our time is reviewing applications that are required by law to come through our office when people are building houses, requesting subdivisions, putting on patios or decks, new septic systems. We have a legacy of houses that were built before Title V, where their septic systems are in the buffer areas of wetlands, and they typically many of them are failing around this point. So in time, so that they come in front of us and also the Board of Health to make sure that new designs properly take into account the necessary preventative measures for affecting our water table and our wetlands there. We are volunteer, as all of us are. We have 7 voting commissioners, 2 associate commissioners. Just anyone who decides that it's time to they put enough time in with the Warrant Committee, if they'd like to become an associate commissioner with us, let us know. And we have an administrative assistant and a conservation consulting agent. So that's Janet. Unusual at this point in time for most of our peer towns, we're about the only town that still has a consulting agent as opposed to a full-time agent. And our agent has It's been more than helpful. Janet had been a commissioner at one point, but she had all the bona fides, including the experience for being Needham's conservation agent, and Wellesley's natural resource director, and degrees in environmental science and environmental law. So she's been extremely helpful at reviewing these applications that come to us. The as it outlines, I won't go through every single bullet point here, but we deal with a state required notices of intent as well as our own bylaw, which is more restrictive than the state, to manage mostly construction projects that are that could impact our wetlands. And we've noticed over the last 10 years that we're running into the same number of applications roughly, but those applications are becoming much more involved, requiring much more oversight, more hearings before we get to closure on those. We've also had several 40Bs that have been coming up in front of us, and subdivision plans that have come in front of us, and all of those eat up a phenomenal amount of time. And we've been farming some of that out to a outside consultant in order to bring in additional expertise, and also that the fees for such oversight are handled by the applicants, so they don't come out of our budget. And then on top of that, as everyone's aware, houses have gotten bigger, landscaping's gotten more involved, more sports courts, riding stables, horse trails, any number of things there. And many of these things take more than a year to build, and require oversight on the part of the agent and updates in terms of the board, in terms of our hearings. So that covers our organization and some of our responsibilities. Why don't you, next one? So this gets a little bit more into the detail of the legal requirements of the oversight that we're supposed to exercise on things that come in front of us. And more importantly, recently, over the last 4 or 5 years, come in front of us because people have done things without permission that could affect our wetlands. Those are called enforcement orders. And at this point, the number of enforcement orders that we have is almost equal to the number of applications that we receive for what's called notices of intent or requests for determination on construction projects. Some of them have been very sizable, where we've had multiple acres of mature trees cut down within our wetland buffer that has required multiple parties involved and multiple attorneys involved. And I have to say, our commissioners have been on the board for quite some time, and we've been able to deal with these things without the town getting involved in lawsuits. And that's part of how one of the things we look at when we're reviewing things, to review them in adequate detail so that we're not subject to parties suing the town because they felt aggrieved. So we've had a very good record on that. And Janet, as our agent consultant, has also been involved with the town for helping to draw up the stormwater management standards, and within that also dealing with trees. We have a tree bylaw both in conservation and a one that's within the highway department now under stormwater, so that it avoids the clear cutting that we've seen in the past, which has then led to under severe storms, mud cascading down roadways and into people's yards and into streams. And so much of that there's been ongoing continuous improvement in our ability to oversee those things. At the same time, unfortunately, with the enforcement actions, we've had an increase as people move into town who may have been misinformed by their attorneys or their brokers, that they can do things in their on their property that they're actually not permitted to, and that can account for a fair amount of time in some of our meetings. Um, let's see. Next slide, please. Okay. So as part of the rubric, we incorporated this and took a look at our annual goals and our performance evaluation. So historically, we've been a reactive board. As things come in front of us, we go ahead and process them. With the advent of increased enforcement actions, we've become a little bit more proactive, trying to avoid that. One of the things we're looking at doing in terms of goals is to notify people, especially new folks who move to town, to review the monthly reports from the Registry of Deeds and contact people who are who may not be aware that they have wetlands on their property to make it clear that they need permission to do work on that property. Um, we're also We've had several decades of acquiring property, and we're now looking at managing that property more proactively, so that we have a management budget. We got a $5,000 increase on that last year. It's all of $35,000. So however, we also utilize an awful lot of volunteers from the town, or not an awful lot, a core number of volunteers. We would love to have more of them. And people have been very generous with equipment and their time. But as part of our budget, we also have to look at some point, we may have to pay for work that is currently done by volunteers, depending on how much we need to do or how many volunteers we'd have at any given moment. Um, the Let's see, and what we'd also like to be able to do is to do a little bit more outreach so that the community is in general recognizes what our role is in trail maintenance, what their role could be in trail maintenance, and just the enjoyment that they can have rather than just driving by and looking at pretty pieces of land in terms of the trails that we have uh, and coupled with the other areas covered by trustees of the reservation and Hale and so forth. As we look at this in terms of self-evaluation and also outside evaluation, such as your board, we are getting a handle on each year we keep thinking that we'll have a slightly lower workload when we don't get a subdivision submission in front of us. But then we find we end up with more enforcement actions. So and many of those become reactive. That's the things that where we're proactive would be education to try to cut down on some of that, and also to have more residents being aware of what we have to offer in terms of their own recreation and enjoyment. We currently have monthly Our Town articles. We're represented at DLCT and Dover Days activities, and we are looking to add more information to our website. And on top of that, this year, especially this last quarter, the advent of online permitting gives us some feedback to be able to see going forward in terms of hard numbers, being able to pull those up faster than we've been able to do in the past. Let's see. Why don't we move to the next? Okay. So this addresses some of the things I just mentioned, such as the fact that our workload is sometimes unpredictable. We as some may have heard, we sometimes have meetings that go on till midnight when we have multiple hearings and multiple continued hearings and subdivision submissions and so forth. We have certain statutory requirements where we have to respond within a certain amount of time, so we can't delay, and some of these things back up and end up with long, intense meetings. The And we view ourselves as an educational arm of the town. So we do attempt to not be adversarial when we're dealing with residents. We assume that most people, if they knew better, would not be cutting trees down in a wetland. So that when they do come in front of us, sometimes they're a little traumatized, and we try to let them realize that our goal is to protect the wetlands. It's not to punish them unless they're being adversarial. And even then, we're not looking to punish. We just want to try to get through to them to let them understand that this is good for all of us. Let's see, as we run through our performance discussion, one of the things we are looking at is to moving forward, we'll have a policy paper out shortly that enforcement actions that come in front of us will be required to have an outside consultant on that. When we use an outside consultant, we use less of Janet's time as a consultant. Janet bills hourly for her time, but we found out a couple of years after Janet's tenure that her start with us that according to town council, we were no longer allowed to bill for her hours directly to all applicants. But if we use an outside consultant for things such as enforcement actions, subdivision submissions and the like, that is perfectly okay. And we have been utilizing that more and more, which has given us a little bit of a cut in our overall expenditures on Janet. Why don't if we move on to the next one, Amy? So here's the feel like I'm on Shark Tank. So for a percentage of this gives you an idea of how our budgets have been moving over the last few years. And we're looking this year at what appears to be a much larger jump than historically than we have had year to year. And I will explain that in just a moment where it appears to be, but actually isn't. But I want to break down some of these items here under the 27 proposal. Permanent staff is our administrative assistant, Deb Takis, who's on with us tonight, I believe. The temporary staff, when we were hammered with subdivisions and 40Bs and so forth, we fell behind in our minutes. And from what I understand, a number of other boards in town also had issues with that. So we have a budget that we utilized a small amount last year, and yet because we got it at near the end of the year, where we would like to bring ourselves up using an outside person, bring ourselves up to the present with our minutes. We're finding that Deb is actually very good at this. So we may not utilize all that money on an outside person, in which case it will go back into the general fund. On trail maintenance, we have a $30,000 budget. We are still looking at our budgeting for between now and the end of the year, and we look to as we become better at organizing these maintenance tasks, it looks very likely that we will expend all of that. Professional services is for Janet Bowser, our consulting agent, and there's a 36% change there. And what that reflects is actually our run rate. If you look over at FY25 and 24, you see that we actually had let's see, 12, we had a roughly 8% reduction from 24 to 25. Part of that was our moving towards outside consultants, and part of it was just, as I mentioned, our just the luck of the draw in terms of the things that we were either enforcing or what was presented to us. In order to Janet's contract budget for those years was 85 $188,000. We overshot that, and we've been overshooting her budget since the inception of Janet's tenure with us. And it had been increasing every year because of the increased workload that we've been receiving. And we had mentioned that to the town. We've spent years pointing that out to town management. And when they brought a town consultant in to review planning board and board of health and building department, we were not included in that review, and we'd asked for it for the last few years, but there's been some turnover in town management, and so that the amounts you see expended there versus the overage of what Janet's budget is have been transferred internally via permission, via the town accountant and oversight from the town manager. And so those reflect the actual run rate of having a consultant agent model and having Janet review everything. And I believe Gavin and Dick may have received a few of Janet's regulatory reports that she makes up for each hearing, and they're extensive and very complete and very helpful as guidance for both the board and for residents and homeowners and developers upon each of those submissions. So as you can see, last year we expended $127,000 on the consulting agent's fees. What we're looking for this year is to basically bring this out into the open. We've been doing these internal transfers. They're not, they've never been brought up in front of the Warrant Commission. And we wanted to bring them all up so that we don't have to do internal transfers again in the future. And so that number looks significant. However, it's per your guidance, that actually is a level funding request based on the internal transfer funding that we've been receiving over the last few years. Let's see. And land management planning has been helpful. We had that increased from 5,000 to 10,000. We have in the past, we've availed ourselves of services from Mass Audubon. And last year we used a different consultant reviewing some of the properties that have where we used to be able to maintain them by having farmers come in, local farmers, and hay them. But we have found that they've, and also we wanted to create more of a trail setup and how to properly manage them going forward. And we encountered a type of spurge that's hallucinogenic to livestock. So we could never, we couldn't no longer have farmers. They wouldn't accept it as hay. They'd go ahead and maybe use it for straw, but they couldn't use it as hay because there's concerns about animals getting sick. So we've had a consultant in. Last year we got a thousands and thousands, if not tens of thousands, of a certain specific beetle that eats that spurge only. And so we're going through that on both Haven Meadows and through our Haven Fields and Springdale Meadows. So we're looking to use all of the our budget for land management planning so that we can move proactively on the management of the properties that we have. So that, and then the others we generally utilize, as you can see, very close to what we've been budgeted for. So the largest thing that jumps out is the professional services budget, and as I've noted, that in essence is level funding for transfers that we've been receiving on a yearly basis to cover the overage of what the original contract was for.
Yeah, and I'm going to cut you off because I don't want to keep. I'll get in trouble if I keep the Board of Health waiting too long.
Oh, so yeah, I'm sorry.
But
so just
I'd like to have I'd like to have some discussion of this because it feels like a number of issues are pertinent.
Mm-hmm.
Gavin and Dick, do you want to comment or?
I mean, I think there was the big question at the end of the day that it's unclear to me exactly how far the conversation has gone, of whether it makes more sense to continue under the consultant model or whether it makes more sense to effectively bring Janet in as a town employee on a long-term basis. And so, must admit, I look at these numbers and it's sort of like I don't know if it's more cost effective or less cost effective, but it does look like it's kind of probably reaching a point where it's not clear that it's a cheaper way to continue to operate on a go forward basis um, as is. And so I'm curious, as you guys have had those discussions, whether that's going to get contemplated, whether the math is different, and no, the existing model makes sense, but it if we're consistently coming in over and it's meaningful, is this still the best model to continue to have?
Mhm. Well, I think one of the things and I've talked to you, Gavin, about this, and commissioners have discussed it, but in brief, frankly, because uh, we've requested a review of the department for exactly those sorts of questions. We were told or I was told that I was given a list of peer communities to review and see how they handle things like this, so that we have an idea of what other communities spend in this, what sort of model they have. When this started, probably 5 years ago, we still had some of those peer communities using a consulting agent model. As such, none of them came close to this amount. And part of it is they also had fewer applications, fewer notices of intent, fewer orders of condition. They seem they're quieter towns. If we go to the DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, they have a number assigned to every notice of intent that's filed. And I I won't pull it up now because it's not in a finished manner. It's just on a series of printed notes, but I did share it at our last meeting. Uh, at this point in time, all of those peer communities have full-time agents, except for Millis and Norfolk, where they're exploring whether to share a full-time agent, but they're realizing that their consulting agent concept is not optimal. But also their consulting agents, they've been paying on the order for around $40,000 a year for us. So it hasn't been as much as ours. In dealing with and speaking with Robert Tessino of Human Resources, this and doing my own research because we didn't have consultants to do so. Uh, Surrounding towns with full-time agents of the peer towns that Robin had pointed me towards are spending anywhere between $80,000 and $110,000 on their agents. And given our workload, it would appear that we would probably need to spend around $100,000 salary to attract the proper agent with experience. Couple that with a $20,000 benefits package thereabouts. We are right at the pivot point of that. And so it's something that we certainly want to look at going forward this year. It's something that we would absolutely love any help we can get from the town, but we've been somewhat, other things have come ahead of us in terms of the attention that the town can put on all the different boards, and so clearly we recognize it. It is at that fulcrum point, and we're open to guidance. In our rough, to reiterate, our rough review of it relative to surrounding towns is that on a net basis, because Janet does not get benefits as a consultant, we're in the same amount that lead towns are paying their agents, including their benefits. Now, one thing to do, in all fairness, to be sure, is that Janet's hours at that price do not come in at the equivalent hours of what a full-time agent would do. So a full-time agent would have additional hours to spend on community outreach, education, and so forth. And another thing to be to make clear too, is that we calculated looking through Janet's invoices at one of our meetings that approximately 30 to 35%, let me think, yeah, around 35% of that amount actually is billing that Janet does for consulting for other boards in the town. So in terms of dealing with highway department, stormwater management, tree issues, the working on new rules and regulations for the town, being available for to have her knowledge being available to other town boards. So that just gives you an idea that it's not 100% for just conservation. That they've used her background for other components there. But on a full-time agent would do the same, but would also still have additional time there. One of the things we do know is Janet is extremely competent and is a known. The one of the things I found in my discussions with other towns, it took many of them a long time to find an agent. And from what I can tell, the newer agents that they've had are less experienced. So that's sort of the data drop for you. You know that we have looked into these things. We know we're on the edge. We're open to some help there. Are there any other questions or comments that?
Yeah, I want to move on to the Board of Health in just one second, but is there any reason to think that the workload is not going to continue to increase given the development pressure in town?
No, that's what I think we had a number of years of optimism that it would decrease. And you can see by these numbers here that even when we don't have a subdivision in front of us, we end up with 40Bs in front of us. We end up with major enforcement actions. The main thing is there are no more slam dunk lots available in town.
Right.
So that anybody who's coming in for development on new property, they're there because that's the last property that was left. So it has wetlands on it. It has many issues that then come in front of us and many complex issues that then make for much more review and a higher number of hearings for each particular submission. So we tried to fool ourselves for a number of years that once we got past X, Y, Z, things would calm down, and we have not encountered that.
Great. All right. Thank you very much. That was, I think you all do an amazing job. I have my own concerns about whether or not a volunteer board is going to continue to be adequate for what is demanded of the Concom, but thank you for your presentation.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for your help. It's been elucidating. Appreciate it.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Jason, sorry to keep you waiting.
No worries at all. Thanks for having us. How is everyone tonight?
Good.
All right. I'm going to share my screen if you guys don't mind.
Yep.
Everyone can see this okay?
Yes,
Yep.
that's good. Thank you.
All right, perfect. So just to do some quick introductions, my name is Jason Belmonte. I'm the health director for the town. I've been with the town of Dover for close to 4 years now. Also with me this evening, Kay Peterson is the Board of Health chair. And Kay, you've been around for 6 years now?
A little more than that, but 7, 8, something like that.
They go by so fast, it seems. All right. So let's get into this here, and we'll be fairly quick here, I promise. I know it's already getting late, so. So just to give an overview of the Board of Health, I am the department head, and as far as our FTE goes, we called it 2.9, which I realize is kind of a funky number. So just like, I guess to give you the breakdown here, our organizational chart. We have our 3-member board of health, led by Kay, of course. And I guess what's unique about our board, John may have mentioned this too, because I believe it's the same for Concom. We are an independent board, meaning we aren't necessarily under the umbrella of the selectman or the town administrator. So the way that works is my boss is the Board of Health. So I report directly to them. And then my staff reports to me. So I'm our lone, full-time Dover person for our health department. Gail, our public health nurse, is also a full-timer, but she splits her time with Sherborne. She gives us 25 hours a week, and she gives Sherborne 15 hours, so she's 40 hours. As far as our admin support, we currently have 2 administrative assistants that make up about 48 hours a week. We have Sophia and we have Maxie currently. And below them, we have 2 consultant positions. We have an animal inspector as well as our deer management consultant. Beyond the staff and the board, as far as our mission goes, it's to protect and promote public health through our regulations, through permitting, our nursing services, communications, and any enforcement that we might do. In terms of our responsibilities, I kind of like to call us, jack of all trades. We have this long laundry list of things that we do. We regulate food, annual and temporary food permits. We do private wells. John touched on it a little bit in his conservation presentation. The town is about 70% private wells, which is a good sized chunk. So we regulate everything on those from repair, installation, quality testing. Septic systems probably consumes the bulk of my time. The town is 100% reliant on private septic systems. So again, everything from repair, installation, Title V inspection follow-ups, all things of that nature. And just to rattle off a couple others, tobacco we regulate, commercial swimming pools. We don't have any at the moment, but we did at one time. Summer camps we do. We're also involved in emergency planning, which is a responsibility we share with fire and police. Health education, and the list goes on and on, believe me. And we'll go to the next slide here. How is our department evaluated? This was kind of an interesting topic for us to get into, just as far as the KPIs goes, because truthfully, it's not something I ever really thought about. The interesting thing about public health is when things tend to be going great, you don't hear a lot about it, just because by nature of our job, a lot of what we do happens behind the scenes. So we've kind of whittled it down to a couple of things here. Number of residents we're serving through clinics, trainings, screenings. And so what I mean by that is, we do our annual flu clinics, rabies clinics. Gail has since joined us as a public health nurse. So we're doing CPR trainings, blood pressure screenings. So to me, it's all about how many people within our community that we can reach. How many people are coming through the clinic? How many shots are we giving out? Things of that nature. How many people can we actually get to with our services? Number of permits and inspections, compliance actions. This is kind of along the same lines. How many people are we working with on orders? How many inspections are we doing in terms of our foods, our septic installations? It all adds up. Vaccination rates, I think, is another really great one. So again, looking at how many people that we can actually connect with and serve within our community doing these different things. As far as our past fiscal year goes, a couple of highlights just to share with you guys. Online permitting was a huge one for us. Board of Health actually kind of led the charge on that. For me personally, I was the project manager for that rollout. It's something I really enjoyed doing, and obviously Board of Health benefited tremendously from it. We were the first one on the system. So we've had a lot of opportunity to dial things in and get things to where they should be at. So, we've had a really good experience with that thus far. We're a couple months into that at this point, just in terms of being live. A few months ago, our Board of Health also adopted nicotine-free generation, which was a big win for us, and I think a big win for the town. We were amongst the first 20 communities in the state to do that. And just real quick, in case there's anyone on here who's not familiar, of course, the legal age to buy tobacco in Massachusetts is 21 years old. What this regulation does is, instead of drawing the line in the sand at a certain age, it draws it at a certain birth date instead, meaning that anyone in town who's currently under 21 can never buy tobacco in this town, even once they turn 21. So our regulation says, instead of under age 21, it says anyone born on or after January 1st, 2005. So that was a big win. It was months of work for us. So it was kind of nice that it all culminated with a positive outcome. I mentioned the public health nurse. We hired her early on in 2025. But truthfully, she really didn't get rolling until we kind of entered FY26, which is why I included her here. And it's just been transformational for us. It's just opened up a whole new world in terms of our services. The CPR trainings I mentioned. We now have AEDs for all the town buildings, which, believe it or not, we didn't have up until a few years ago. Blood pressure screenings, camp inspections, collaborating with local hospitals, other nurses. It's just been a great experience, and we're looking forward to the future with her and how we can expand even further. Rabies clinic and flu clinic this year, probably the best year I think we've ever had in terms of numbers. I don't know exact figures off the top of my head, but I think we had something like 120 people come through our vaccination clinic, which was an awesome turnout. And as far as the rabies clinic, we had about 25 pets come through, which is great. We'll have another one coming up here in a couple of months. Shared services is another big one for us. So Dover Board of Health is part of a regional coalition. It's called the Charles River Public Health District. So we're partnered up with Needham, Medfield, and Sherborne. And we've done this for the last couple of years. It's just kind of a way of pooling resources. We meet once a month, work on different initiatives. It's been a really positive experience for us overall. And I do consider Dover Board of Health as one of the leaders of this group. We've had the most involvement, and we've kind of just done the most in terms of our being proactive on certain things and just leading the charge with different happenings and initiatives. Emergency preparedness has been another theme for us this past year. So I touched on it a little bit earlier. So this is something where we partner with fire and police, and we just kind of make sure we have plans in place in case things ever go really south. We all want to make sure we're in sync and have proper plans so we can respond to these emergencies. So up until this year, our emergency preparedness plans for everyone's contact information still had beeper numbers. So that was something that we had to, of course, address. So it's been getting that up to date. And now, of course, that we've had a new police chief for a couple of years. We have our new fire chief. It's getting on the same page with those guys and just making sure these plans are up to date. So that's something we continue to work on. And another big win for us, Sophia, I mentioned earlier, one of our admins. She started as an intern with us last spring. Emailed me out of the blue from her school email address and said, "Can I join you guys as an intern?" And the rest is history. She's a permanent staffer with us now, working 28 hours a week. Probably the best person I've ever worked with in terms of doing meeting minutes, which I think Kay might agree with. She's tremendous. So I think that's a big win for the town, just kind of bringing someone up through the system, if you will, and having homegrown talent.
I hope those people from conservation aren't listening to what you're saying.
Oh, well. All right. So as far as the budget stuff goes, pretty straightforward for us. So biggest change that we're proposing for FY27. So I touched on the two admins. Currently give us 48 hours a week of admin work. So our hope for FY27 is we would actually like to consolidate those positions into one full-time 35-hour admin role. I think it just makes for a lot more efficient of an operation. It provides a full-time opportunity to somebody, which I think is great. It just makes it a lot more attractive just in terms of recruitment. It saves the town some money. So to me, it's a win across the board. So just looking down at some of these basic figures here in this table. FY26, 298,000 is where we shook out in terms of our final numbers. What we're proposing in FY27 is 294,000. So it's close to about a $4,000 decrease, or about 1%. And you'll notice too, expenses did go up about $1,200 across a few lines. Phone went up a little bit to account for the nurse who we now have. Office supplies for the extra staff position. And some extra training money to account for, continuing education, conferences that we go to, and things of that nature. So proposing a overall decrease for FY27. Beyond the budget, just a few future considerations. Proactive versus reactive public health services. Historically, this department, before we kind of came like a true, legitimate professional staff, everything we did was just kind of reactive. Complaints would come in, things would happen that you'd have to address. We've kind of completely shifted gears on that. Certainly, we still have things that come up that we have to react to, but in terms of proactive, we're doing more inspections than ever. Our record keeping is better than ever. Our education and our community outreach is as good as it's ever been. It continues to grow. Expanded nursing services, I touched on a little bit. Actually going out, doing home visits and giving vaccinations are things we hope to do in the future. So everything we've done so far with nursing has been great. It's been awesome, but there's still so much more potential in areas for us to explore. A budget consideration, not necessarily just for Board of Health, but possibly looking at a shared vehicle sometime here in the future, maybe for the land use departments to share. Just being out and about all the time in your personal vehicle gets a little tough. So just kind of a something to consider for down the road. Water quality, PFAS in particular, seems to be a hot topic in our Board of Health realm. I know it's come up a lot. I know with selectmen and other committees. That's something we're going to hear a lot more about. It is something the Board of Health has started to dive into, just as far as our well regulations go and things like that. So just kind of something we're going to have to consider as we move forward with our private well situation and even our public water. This is a concern everywhere, so it's something that's going to come up a lot more. And lastly, Board of Health is looking to add an associate board member. We do have an article that we'll have on town meeting for this year. So I guess looking at all these, the common theme that you're seeing is growth. Board of Health is, as far as I'm concerned, is growing at a rapid pace. We're doing more than we've ever done. Our board, if we add this associate member, is going to be bigger than it's ever been. So just a lot of positive happenings, and just a lot of upward trajectory here. So, okay, anything that you want to add anywhere that I may have missed as we're wrapping up here?
Well, nothing that you've missed. I think I would just emphasize a few things. One is kind of in order in which you spoke about them. The generational nicotine ban that we enacted is hopefully going to be something that the state will enact sometime in the next few years. There is a bill that has been that's in committee somewhere about this. And I wanted to mention about our shared services arrangement that just to say a couple of things. One is that we have Denise Garlick to thank for a lot of this. She was instrumental in helping pass the legislation that secured funding for shared services throughout the state. And I'll also say that Jason didn't mention this, but he's chaired the environmental working group in our shared services group and has mentored a lot of people in environmental health. It's been very helpful. One other thing that has been an accomplishment for us, or just a real treat, is that our offices have been relocated. We've taken over the building department space, and we've been able to bring Gail, our nurse, into the suite with everybody else. And I would say one of the things we've learned from having a nurse for the first time is that her contacts lead to more contacts, that once she gets out there and is known, people are coming to her with questions and for advice and for assistance with a variety of issues. And that's exactly why she's there. It's been very helpful.
Great. Questions, comments? Three hours of hearings has done everybody in. All right, that was great. Thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you guys for having us. We really appreciate it.
All right, good. Misha, I remembered on my own We need to approve the minutes from last time. So anyone have comments, corrections on the minutes that Mish sent around? If not, I'm happy to entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
I move to accept the minutes.
Thank you, Marty. And do I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Nina. Mish,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Sarah,
Hi.
Marty,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So any comments, suggestions about the session today and carrying on for the 23rd, which is the next Zoom hearing we have?
I'm actually curious, is this different than in prior years?
I would say a little bit different. I think as a couple of the people presenting commented, I think they felt like they got a lot more direction for their presentations, which I have to say is I think very much true. I think the liaisons have done an amazing job kind of interacting with people. And I thought most of the presentations reflected our input pretty well. So I thought that was great.
And I think what it's done, Woody, is given it some framework for these
Yes, yeah,
conversations. And it's not just, here's what I've spent last year and I need a little bit more. And,
yep,
you know,
yep.
it's
Yeah, I agree.
context.
Yeah. So Wednesday night this week, 6:30 at the middle school with Sherburne Advisory and the Regional School Committee. It'll actually be an official warrant committee meeting, but it won't be on Zoom. I think it will be taped, so there'll be a recording of it, but not a Zoom recording. And I would really, if you have the opportunity, I would really recommend listening to the recording of the February 3rd Regional School Committee meeting on YouTube. It'll give you a lot more context about what's going on at the schools and what they've done. I think they have done an amazing kind of look at the services they provide, what is happening demographically to the schools, and they've managed to kind of take the services and their goals regarding their services and use that to kind of drive how they've looked at their budget, and I think they've really done an incredible job. I would actually hope that the rest of the town departments pay attention to this. For example, what we heard today about the ambulance and what the services provided, I think could very much prompt a discussion about how that is structured and what kind of services should be provided in the future. But when you hear the presentation from the school committee on Wednesday, I think you'll get a sense of how it can be done. So no meeting next week because it's school vacation week. So that after Wednesday, our next meeting will be February 23rd, which will be another long hearing session. And now I am happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion?
Nobody wants to adjourn? Thank you, Dick. Can I get a
Motion.
second?
Second.
Second.
Great. Thank you, Marty. Nina,
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Sarah,
Hi.
Gavin,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Mish,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. And now I'm going to wait till everybody signs off before I close. So, Mish,
All right, I got the transcript. I'm good.
okay, I'll
Thank you.
close it up then. All right.
All right, yeah.
So see you Wednesday night.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.